Hello and welcome to the Business Spotlight Series, episode number 49. Today we're here with Rick Taylor with Rick Taylor Real Estate and the Reinhart Realtors. How are you doing today, Rick?
I'm doing great, Terrace. How are you?
I'm doing very well, very well. It's a beautiful day. I can't wait to get out there and do a little bike riding or something, and enjoy it. I think it's supposed to be like 67, so can't beat that.
Yeah, I'll take it. I actually came home to my home office, and whoever knew before COVID that a home office would be play such an important role in so many people's lives now. I mean,
Yeah,
even when COVID is over, I think you're going to see
a lot more work.
home office being a real important thing because I don't think a lot of people. I think there's going to be a segment of our population that never go back to work. They found that it's working pretty well working from home.
Yeah, and why even pay for the facilities and stuff? Plus, you get a tax write-off by using a space, as a designated office. A lot of benefits. I can tell you right now, when we bought the schoolhouse, I never thought that I would end up using this old chalkboard as much as I have in the last year. That's for sure. So, yeah, that's good stuff. Well, hey, obviously, tons of people know Rick Taylor. They know Rick Taylor Real Estate. We've done this once before, but I guarantee we got some people that don't know everything. Pretty much everyone, I imagine. So let's hear a little bit. Let's get a little bit of that background that maybe we haven't talked about before. What's brought you to this point,
Sure. So I think, you and I were briefly talking before this thing started, and I kind of want to talk about like my attitude toward real estate and my attitude toward, my life right now. I'm 52. And I think, what makes me the kind of realtor that I am, it really has a lot to do with kind of how I grew up and where I started and all of that. And so I lived in rural Ontario. I lived outside of a town called Oshawa, Ontario. There were two GM plants there. We lived in outside of town, outside of Curtis, Ontario. And I didn't know my real dad. I had a stepdad and my real mom, and it was a pretty toxic environment then. So I spent a lot of time outside. Like a lot of kids in their early and mid 70s was, outside was kind of the thing that we all did, and we all had our bikes and with the banana seat, and I was.
Oh, yeah.
And then my stepdad and my mom divorced, and throughout that process, it's kind of sad, but I stayed in a foster home for about a year.
Oh, wow.
That was rough. And then, I actually went with my dad, and then my dad got a job in the States, and he had a lot of knowledge of cable TV systems. And so the United States was getting into this thing called cable TV. And so that's how my dad got into this country, and, we subsequently followed him in. And then I graduated from Plymouth Canton High School, really, really, really had a wonderful experience. And then I went to Northern Michigan University, and I have a business degree from up there. But I was climbing telephone poles when I was, 18 years old. And so 18 in the summer, on the weekends, and I was pretty young for that. But at the same time, you could make, $1,500 a week because we were getting paid production, and that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
And then I stayed in that industry, and after college, and the worst thing that happened to me and the best thing that happened to me was I got fired. And I got fired from my job, and my son Ricky, who is now 20, was literally a year old. And Jim Utzler from Chelsea, a realtor from Chelsea, he was a former GM executive, and he called me up literally 3 days after I got fired and asked me, how was I doing? And I said, not good. And he said, you should be a realtor. And I never sold a thing in my life. I just didn't know anything about real estate. But Jim said he thought I was really good with people. In my previous position, I was a project manager. So I was dealing with P&L statements and hiring and firing and, delegating work to different crews. And we did directional drilling, cable splicing, cable TV splicing, fiber splicing, that kind of stuff. And so when I got into real estate, it's just a completely different animal. I really kind of loved it. And so I remember early on in my career, I really had a lot of good things fall my way. They say luck is when preparation meets opportunity, but also good mentors. Norm Wetzel was a mentor to me. Jim Utzler was a mentor to me. Paul Freisinger was a mentor to me. And they saw the rough diamond, very, very rough, but they worked to, and I'm still a rough diamond. But they saw something in me, and they were kind enough and thoughtful enough to really say, you really could change your life for the better, and in this industry. And so, through them, I was able to do a lot better. And I remember listening to real estate agents, and it's a hard business. I mean, it's hard. There are a lot of ways to get your feelings hurt and to feel that you got messed over and stuff. Mm-hmm. But when I would hear agents say, oh, real estate is so hard, I'm like, no, I'll tell you what's hard. Climbing a telephone pole in February when your toes are numb and 2 feet in the air, while the wind's howling at 30 miles an hour, that's hard. And that attitude, I remember where I came from, and I remember where the quality of my life is now. And I use that kind of as a guide, to where I am today. My stepdad was the hardest working man I ever met. And if he ever sees this, I hope he appreciates that, because he really was. And he taught me a work ethic. I'll give you for instance, when I was 14 years old, I was working on a cable TV crew, and I was what's called a grunt. So you have 2 linemen, one on one pole, one on another. You have the guy in the truck, and I'm the, and then you have another guy on the ground, and I'm the low man on the totem pole, no pun intended. And I was the guy that had to get equipment, bring it to the ground guy, he'd throw it up to the lineman, that kind of thing. I got called all kinds of stuff. I
can imagine.
And I remember at 14 literally at 14 going, okay, I'm getting paid the least. The guy on the ground, he's making more than me. Those 2 linemen up there, they're making pretty good money. But the guy making all the money is the guy sitting in that truck right over there. And I wanted to be the guy in the truck. And this sucks. And so that's, that's pretty much my history. So I just worked my little heart out. And it's something I've thought about. And it was funny. I was just talking about this with my son the other day. And, we talk about regret, our past, things, I wish I could have done things differently. I wish I had a better relationship with some members of my family and everything like that. But if I could go back in time and change my life, I wouldn't have my wife. I wouldn't have Ava, my 10-year-old daughter, Ava. I wouldn't have Ricky, and I wouldn't have the career that I love, And so it's this balancing act, because at 52, you start doing the math of how much time you have left, and you don't know how much time you have left. Right. Things you wish you could have done differently. But at the same time, you have to experience those growing pains as a human being, and try to take that through. And just real quickly, the one thing that I've learned in my life when it comes to this profession as a real estate agent is, what do you want? Like me, what do I want? Do I want to make money? Well, of course I want to make money, but do I want to make money being helpful to somebody else and trying to get them what they want? Or do I just want to think about my own paycheck? And sure. I've said this from the beginning of my career: if you care about your clients, really care about your clients, the money will fall, and they'll let and you'll move on. So that's that.
Well, that's awesome. Obviously, a lot to unpack there. I did not know most of that, and I've known you for years now. So that's really interesting stuff. There is one thing specifically that came to mind, and you mentioned that you said, I had never sold anything when you started doing real estate. And from my, brief time doing real estate and what I've learned, and I actually came from sales. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you right now, the concept of being a project manager and somebody who's got to look at all these different things that need to get done, coordinate all these people to work together to get that thing done, almost translates better to real estate than any sales experience that you could have. And that's probably part of the key to your success, is that ability to constantly take, the lender, the title company, the buyer, the seller, the appraiser, everybody that's possibly involved in this giant thing, and be able to make it all flow smoothly and get it done for your clients so that they can sit back and wait and then hopefully either sell their house or get their house. So I just thought that was interesting.
And then you throw in the appraisal that didn't or may not come in right, or the inspection, old, and always there's always a fire, right? And so our job is really to try to keep the temperature down and get your client to the end with the least amount of pain.
Yeah. Well, let's just take that right into the market here. So obviously, the market's been very unusual for the last year. But right now specifically, I know listings are down. buyers are up, but there's some interesting stuff happening right now in that regard. You had mentioned interest rates are doing something new right now.
Right. So I'll give you a for instance. So I have a client that I'm helping, numerous clients that I'm helping, but I've got a client that I'm helping right now, and the lender called me and said, we've got a problem. And I said, what's the problem? And she said, interest rates are going up dramatically. And so your ability to buy as a buyer, let's say you're a buyer and you qualify for $400,000 as a buyer. Just pick a number.
Sure.
You're qualifying for $400,000 on a few different factors. One, your credit score. Two, what your income is. Three, your what's called your debt to income ratio. That's very important. But the other factor that comes into play that most buyers don't think about is what the interest rate is. So
right.
Lower the interest rate, the higher your ability to purchase.
Sure.
So what's happening now is, and so for some people who are just really well off or wealthy or whatever, that interest rate's not going to affect them very much. Or people who have a really strong income, strong six-figure incomes is not going to be impacted too much. But if you're making $40,000 to $80,000 a year, and you want to get a nice house, if that interest rate goes from 3% to 4% or 4.5%, that $400,000 house is now coming down to $350,000. Mm-hmm. And so what I can tell you definitively, without any doubt, and I knew this is going to be coming, everybody knew this was coming.
Right.
Last week was the first time in years where interest rates are going up, and they're starting to climb slow. It actually spiked pretty dramatically last week, and then it came back down, but now it's going back up again. So the fact that we don't have homes on the market, or very few homes on the market, believe me, seller, and I'm looking into the camera, and I don't usually look into the camera, put your house on the market. Use me. I'd rather you use me. But if you want to use somebody else, that's fine. But if you're thinking of selling, do it now. Inventory is crazy low, and your number of buyers that could buy your house are going to shrink. It's not a fear tactic. It's math.
Yeah. If the interest rate goes up, their price drops, and therefore your market is
home, which leads to fewer showings, which leads to fewer multiple offers, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely playing a role.
So now, right now, they're still quite low. So although that's on the horizon, as of right now, we can see that there is still this shortage of listings. You've got lots of buyers, and as far as you said, you got a house to list, get a hold of an agent, get a hold of Rick, get a hold of somebody. If you're thinking about doing it, now is the time. If you're a buyer who's out there looking, or a potential buyer, there are also still some things that can be done, even though it's a little bit of it's a seller's market right now. Right. And before we got on this, we were talking about one specifically, which is the FSBO aspect of things. Right. So maybe you could enlighten us a little bit on that.
Right. So take this in the context I mean it. Mm-hmm. A monkey can sell your house, right? It doesn't mean that that's the right thing to do. And so right. I'm not saying a for sale by owner is a monkey. I'm not saying that at all. A great agent can sell your house. A not so great agent can sell your house. You can sell your home, and it's not about intelligence. I've often heard people who are thinking of selling their homes by themselves say, "Well, I'm a pretty smart person." Well, I'd like to think I'm kind of smart, but I'm not an attorney. And I don't right. be one, so I'm not gonna defend myself. I've never sued ever, just to be clear, never ever. But I wouldn't ever want to take on that role of doing something that you're only going to do a few times in your lifetime. I'd rather just hire the professional. And so I had a buyer who just repeatedly kept losing, and we were actually doing the right things. And you can do everything right and still not win. And so, but my goal as a realtor when I'm representing someone is to keep that probability as low as we can.
Right.
The factors of the buyer play a role. If you're not cash, that hurts. And if your income is your income, there's just little we can do. And if you don't have a bunch of money stacked off to the side, then we can't do an appraisal shortfall. Mm-hmm. Right. So a lot of our ability to make our offer look better is really dependent on the buyer's ability as well. Mm-hmm. But we kept losing. And then my client calls me up and says, "Hey, I saw a for sale by owner that came up earlier today." And, when a for sale by owner calls and says, hey, or pardon me, they put their property on the market, they're asking for a number. They're not going to get the exposure as they would hiring a realtor to get on the MLS. So to make this long story shorter, my client said, Rick, I like this house. I'd love to look at it. I called the for sale by owner. That for sale by owner said, sure, come on over. And we said, how much do you want for it? And they gave us a price, and I thought it was a really great price. We said, I was very specific to that person. I said, if we write you a full price offer today, will you sign it immediately? And that person said, sure. And we won. We got that house. It's a really good house. I think the seller could have done far better had they hired a realtor. But again, it's, if that seller felt like they won, good for them. I know my client won. I know that, she was really happy about it. So, but yeah, the market is really crazy right now. If you list it, it will sell.
Yeah, field of dreams.
Yeah.
And that is an interesting story, because there's two takeaways from that in my, listening to it. Is one, on the buyer's side, you're going to want an agent who's able to think outside of the box, deal with people that are maybe not even wanting to deal with agents, and still get that done for you. And two, that person sold their house and they got their asking price, and that's great. But everybody else that's listing a house right now is getting multiple offers above and beyond, offers that have less contingencies. Maybe there's, the person's bringing a contractor. Is this a tip you told me about earlier?
Yeah. So I can tell you some of the tricks, but I don't want to say too many, because
sure.
I want clients to come to me and not to other agents. But one of the things you can do to help improve your chances of getting an offer in a multiple offer situation is to waive inspection. Mm-hmm. Well, that's pretty reckless, right? Like I shouldn't say it like that. I mean, who am I to tell what's appropriate and what isn't? But in my personal professional opinion, I think writing an offer that is not contingent on an inspection, because you could have a mold problem in the attic, right. You could have a cracked foundation, you could have a cracked heat exchanger, right? And when I bought my house, I had a furnace guy come out, and he said, and the house was vacant. The house I bought was vacant for 7 months. And my furnace guy said, and I quote, "If you spend one night in this house, you will not wake up tomorrow morning." We had a cracked heat exchanger. We figured it out, and thank God that we had a professional doing it. Yeah. However, if you bring an inspector with you during the showing, mm-hmm. they can do a quick inspection. They can run into the attic, see if there's mold. They can go in, check the foundation. Mm-hmm. They can pull the panel off real quick, and we're getting permission, by the seller. Of course. So pulling the panel off, looking at that, putting it back, getting the furnace checked out, and getting the mechanicals looked at, testing a few plugs, opening and closing a few windows, and that way so to make your offer look better, you're waiving inspection. You can also do what's called an appraisal shortfall guarantee, mm-hmm. where you say to the seller, if the house comes in short of appraisal, will you buy it? Say you write an offer for $300,000, it comes in at $280,000, that the buyer will absorb that loss. Those are the things you have to do in order to win. But you got to also make sure that the buyer actually has those funds, right?
Right.
To fill that gap. So there are 30 other things you can do in your offer, and that's why coming in with a realtor is so important.
And I know that in your industry, this seems like such an obvious thing to you and everybody, but I always have to throw this out there, because I think it's crazy the amount of people that don't realize on the buying side, traditionally, and maybe that's not the right word to use, but you don't pay your realtor anything to help. You don't pay your realtor anything to have them help you buy a house.
Yeah, and I get that question all the time. How much do you charge?
I know, it's crazy.
How much do you charge? And the truth is, so long as it's listed right mm-hmm. through the MLS, if it's listed with a realtor, a buyer gets the professional services of someone like me for free.
Yeah.
So, land can be sold for 8%, 10%, 6%, 5%. Houses can be sold for 5%, 6%, 7%.
Yeah.
You have what's called a variable rate commission. But regardless of what the commission is, what's customary here, I don't want to speak for the USA or the whole state of Michigan, but in Chelsea, we're a part of the Ann Arbor Area Board of Realtors. And so what's customary, not necessarily necessary,
correct,
is that we split commissions evenly. And so the listing agent, they get half of the commission. The buying agent bringing in the buyer, we get the other half.
Yeah.
And the purchaser gets the expertise of a professional realtor for nothing. It's the seller who pays for it.
And the fiduciary responsibility of that agent, which is just huge. You don't want to be working with an agent who's already has a responsibility to somebody else, i.e. the seller.
Right.
Somebody looking out for you. And that.
You know, and I'm one of those people, if I don't interrupt, I'll forget. So forgive me.
Go right ahead.
But I can't tell you how many times I'll have buyers like almost break their neck when they snap back and look at me when I'll say, I think this house is awful and you shouldn't buy it. You know, because that's usually not what buyers hear. It's
right.
Rent it off, or do you want to rent it? Do you want to buy it? You should buy it. And I'm like, this house is awful. Don't, run, don't walk. And I'll start pointing out things about the house that would concern me as a buyer. And I think, and I'm not the only one. There are other really great realtors that are out there. But I appreciate that, that it's not about the sale. It's about making sure that your client is getting a house that they're not going to have issues with later. I let the inspector do their professional job, but if I see something that's blatantly obvious, I'm going to tell my client, and they appreciate that. They're always surprised.
Oh, of course.
Every time.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much that's an insane amount of information, obviously. And like we said, I know you've got a million other tricks of the trade, and that's why people should get a hold of you if they're thinking of buying or selling, especially selling right now. Yeah. Or if they're out there as a frustrated buyer, and haven't been hiring an agent.
Well, I do have a couple of listings coming up in Chelsea, and I'm looking forward to it. And Ann Arbor as well. And, people from Ann Arbor come out to Chelsea. A lot of people from Chelsea, they go Ann Arbor or down south of Florida and wherever and everywhere in between. So that's what I love about this business is you have people that are coming in from all over, people who are moving locally, people who are moving far away. Mm-hmm. It's definitely a relationship business for sure.
Yep. No, that's true. Well, hey, let's move on to something a little off subject, a little fun here. So last time I had you on, we talked about a video you had put on Facebook of this eagle coming down and trying to swoop a duck off your pond, which I loved. But now this over the winter, I saw a new video of your pond, and I just thought it was so cool. You actually went through the work to go out there, and your daughter Ava is an ice skater. Yeah. So what did you have to do to get that done?
So my wife Shelly, who's awesome, she's from Ann Arbor, born and raised in Ann Arbor, and my wife was a figure skater and a coach, and I was somewhat athletic growing up. But Ava really took after her mom, and Ava's a spectacular figure skater. I mean, she can do axels and lutzes and salchows and this, that, and things I can't even pronounce. But to watch her, I mean, first off, as a parent, and earlier in the beginning of the show, I kind of talked about my humble beginnings, and so now at this point in life to be able, we have two older boys, 20 and 21, and yet here we are with this, later in life gift with Ava being 10. I tell you, it really, I swear to you, it helps keep you young. I really mean that. But watching Ava just so gracefully skate, and I was watching her yesterday. The bad part about COVID is, it really upsets your life. The good part about COVID is you get to hang out with your kids a lot more. Yeah. And yesterday I was watching Ava skate. But anyway, she had said, Dad, is there any way we can skate on the pond? And well, my pond is, almost is 0.4 acres, almost half an acre.
Yeah.
And so I turned off the aerators, and in about 2 weeks we had 5 inches of ice. Nice. And so here's a tip for everyone out there. Buy a tankless hot water heater, not the round 50, 60 gallon one. Buy a tankless, because it never runs out of hot water ever. It's like a radiator coil.
Right.
The other thing is they last for about 25 to 30 years. They last much longer than a traditional one. But what you can also do is hook up a outdoor hose to your tankless hot water heater and spray hot water on your ice rink. And that's what we did. So we just had this beautiful ice rink. It was ridiculous how nice
it was. So pristine.
But every time it would snow, I'm like, oh God, no, because that meant that I had to go out there, and I can't bring a four-wheeler. I have a four-wheeler with a snowplow on it. You can't, it's not thick enough. No. And so I was out there with the snowblower, but then it doesn't get it quite good enough. There's still snow. So I'd have to broom it, and then I'd have to water it again. And so every time it'd snow, I would cry myself to sleep at night. But watching her, how elegant she is on the ice, how fortunate we are. It was really lovely. And
Yeah.
so next year, and I've actually invited people over, but nobody showed up. I wonder why.
Yeah.
Anyway, but next year, the Rick Taylor ice rink will be open to the public and anyone who wants to come out.
All right. All right. I don't know if I just go putting your address up on there anywhere.
Yeah, right. No, but it was really
kind of you.
And, again, I just, so blessed that, we have Ava Grace. So.
Yeah. Yeah. She's an adorable girl. I got the pleasure of passing out gingerbread kits with her.
That's right. Yeah.
Yep.
She's so happy, and I just look at her and I'm just amazed at how happy of a kid she is. I'm so lucky.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. Great to hear. Well, I got to mention, obviously, Sweet Saver Saturdays. The Lucky Edition is happening this month. You are our sponsor for the month of March. We greatly appreciate that because obviously without our sponsors, we could not do these community events. And for people that don't know, visit chelseamish.com and you'll see all the sales and specials all over town. You can enter for a $100 gift card on Saturdays all around the area. There's giveaway boxes. Doesn't cost anything. Just drop your name in. This month, because it is Lucky Edition for March, the gift card is going to Cleary's Pub, $100, and that buys a lot of good stuff at Cleary's. And we're also doing a pop-up shop next Saturday, the 20th, a week from Saturday, where we're going to have True North Jerky, and Wesley's Catering is going to be doing brisket chili cups, and the Qantas is going to be there with their annual nut sale, and Ugly Dog's got $8 Ecto coolers, and we're going to be doing a scavenger hunt, all sorts of cool stuff. I'm sure Rick will be down there with me for a little bit as well. So make sure to mark your calendars, noon to 5, March 20th. And we will be down there. We also just put it up in the comments if you want to click the link. And yeah, Rick, and thank you so much for sponsoring this.
Yeah.
We do.
I started my career in Chelsea, and I love Chelsea. I still plan to be selling real estate in Chelsea for a number of years, and it's been so great to us. And just giving back it's just the right thing to do. And I love this town. So
well, and obviously not everybody shares that exact same mentality. So I applaud you for having that opinion on how to treat your community. That's treated.
Yeah. Well, and you guys are doing such a great job. And I gotta give a big shout out to Denise Puglieri because she's she's what a force, man. What a force. Man.
Yep, she is. I couldn't do it without her.
Yeah.
And that's great. Now, we always finish up with something quick. We've gone pretty long today, so we're going to do it real snap quick. But you have been sucked into a guilty pleasure, as you put it lately.
Right.
You've been watching the show on Bravo. And what is that show?
It's called Below Deck. And, it's I don't want to say it's trash TV, but
That's okay.
So what's really cool about the show is, they have these various seasons. So want to be on a super yacht, like a, $60, $70 million boat. And they're in Greece and Indonesia and different places. And it's just really cool to see, the different aspects of the world. So from that aspect, you get to see this opulent lifestyle. It's like watching The Rich and Famous, with Robin, whatever his name was. Robin Leach, I think his name was. But anyway, and then, another season they'll have, like right now, it's a sailboat. It's this, gargantuan sailboat. And, the guests act like morons and everyone's got a camera on them. The stuff, it's just the inner workings of a crew and the guests. And
kind of like The Office on the high seas.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. All the hijinks. Yes.
Yeah, that's great. Well, hey, Rick, thank you so much for coming on today. Really appreciate all of that great information and getting a glimpse into your past and your present and everything going on. We look forward to having you in the community for all time. I gotta say thank you to Grifka Marketing and Shasta Grifka for sponsoring and facilitating as always. We're going to take next week off for St. Patty's Day and some much needed respite, but we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Thanks again, Rick, for coming by. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and we will see you guys in a couple weeks. Have a good one.
All right.